This is your world news broadcast. To the headlines. More than 80 killed in a mass Moroccan rush towards Spain's Ceuta enclave. Madrid accuses Moroccan intelligence of infiltrating migrant groups. Also on news tonight, Algeria reaffirms its commitment to peace and security in Africa, taking the helm of the Peace and Security Council with dialogue and mediation at the forefront. Up next, dozens killed in Gaza as Zionist occupation strikes continue. Rights groups condemn what they describe as the slow killing of women and children. And later on, Trump says strikes on Iran are on hold if Tehran agrees to a swift Hormuz deal. Iran insists it will defend its security and warns of a wider response. This story and more shortly. First off in our news, and as you followed in our headlines, the death toll from the mass Moroccan crossing towards Spain's enclave of Ceuta has climbed to 87 as search and recovery operations continue on both sides of the border. Authorities warned a number could rise to 120, with several people still reported missing. Spanish officials say rescue teams and divers are still combing the coastline, particularly near the Tarajal border crossing, while strong sea currents could bring more bodies ashore in the coming days. Most of the victims are believed to be drowned or to have drowned during the attempted crossing.
As we arrived in Ceuta, we saw burned vehicles, both small cars and burned buses. We have documented these scenes because they are part of human rights report being prepared by the branch. There are also a number of missing people along the migration routes. Today, we contacted a number of families. Certainly, we have figures and informations that we will include in the report. We will try to help these families until we reach their relatives through joint work with the human rights movement, both on our side and on the other side.
بعمل مشترك مع الحركة الحقوقية سواء في ضفتنا أو في الضفة الأخرى.
In the same context, Spain's civil guard says it has identified individuals believed to be linked to Moroccan intelligence operating among migrant groups during the recent mass crossing into Ceuta. Spanish authorities say the findings reinforce suspicions of direct involvement by Moroccan security services. Here's Zarfa Jenny with the report.
The mass crossing into Ceuta is now raising fresh security questions, shifting the focus from the sheer number of migrants to what might have been happening behind the scenes. Spanish newspaper El Español, citing civil guard sources, reports that the investigators reviewing surveillance footage from the border identified several individuals believed to be linked to Morocco's intelligence services moving among the crowds that cross into the Spanish territories. According to the report, civil guard analysts do not believe the individuals were trying to reach Spain themselves. Instead, they were on the ground to monitor the operation as it unfolded, tracking the movement of migrants, observing events in real time, and feeding information back to Moroccan security agencies. The findings have added to growing suspicions with parts of Spain's security and political establishment that the mass crossing of more than 60,000 Moroccans was not simply a spontaneous migration wave. Instead, investigators are looking into whether Moroccan authorities played a more active role, using migration as a pressure tactic in their relationship with Madrid. With the investigation ongoing, El Español said the relations are expected to fuel an already heated political debate in Spain. Questions are mounting over the government's handling of the crisis, the future of security cooperation with Morocco, and whether migration has become a geopolitical tool in relations between the two neighbors.
Meanwhile, the Moroccan Association for Human Rights says the unprecedented surge in mass crossings towards Ceuta and Melilla reflects a growing loss of public confidence in state institutions and policies. In a statement, the group said the wave of departures exposes deep social despair and highlights what it called the state's failure to provide citizens with basic dignity and hope for a better future.
These heartbreaking scenes reflect the depth of Morocco's structural crisis. Thousands of young people have lost hope of building a future at home due to rising unemployment, social inequality, and the lack of decent jobs and living conditions. What was once individual despair has become a collective wave driving irregular migration, fueled by the absence of effective public policies, unequal distribution of wealth, corruption, and authoritarian governance. The unprecedented movement in northern Morocco is no longer just a social crisis. It is a dangerous sign of growing public distrust in state institutions and the prospect of a dignified future in the country.
The rights group also condemned what it described as the political exploitation of migration, accusing authorities of using widespread poverty and social vulnerability as leverage in political pressure and bargaining with European countries.
We condemn the political exploitation of the migration issue through the use of humanitarian suffering and the poverty and vulnerability faced by broad segments of the population, including children and minors, as a tool for political pressure or leverage between Morocco and European countries. We call for full respect for international human rights conventions and reject the use of thousands of poor and marginalized people, victims of failed state policies, as instruments of diplomatic maneuvering or hostages to policies that disregard their human dignity and fundamental rights.
In other news, Algeria has assumed the rotating presidency of the African Union's Peace and Security Council for August, reaffirming its commitment to peace and stability across the continent. Algeria's ambassador to Ethiopia and permanent representative to the African Union, Mohammed Khalid, said the role reflects Algeria's long-standing support for African-led solutions to African challenges, in line with the country's foreign policy under President Abdelmajid Tebboune.
تولي الجزائر رئاسة مجلس السلم والأمن.
Algeria's chairmanship of the African Union Peace and Security Council during the month of August 2026 is both a great responsibility and a great honor. It embodies Algeria's long-standing commitment to promoting peace and security across the African continent and enshrines the principles of its foreign policy under the leadership of President Abdelmajid Tebboune. This important chairmanship, the second since Algeria's election in 2025 as a member of the Peace and Security Council for the sixth time since its establishment in 2004, reflects the trust our country enjoys within the African Union and its constant dedication to establishing peace and stability on the continent, guided by its steadfast belief in the principle of African solutions to African problems.
The Algerian permanent representative to the African Union said the country has prepared what he described as a balanced, ambitious, and comprehensive agenda for its presidency of the Peace and Security Council. Let's take a listen.
وتجسيدا لهذا الالتزام.
In line with this commitment, Algeria, during its chairmanship of the Council, developed a work program addressing the continent's priorities. First and foremost, the guarantee of security in its state. This stems from deep conviction. Africa is the continent of a promising future, and its security, stability, and development are a collective responsibility that requires the synergy of efforts from all its citizens within a framework of solidarity, unity, and integration, serving the aspirations of the continent's peoples for peace and prosperity. This program is based on a pragmatic and realistic approach, encouraging the formulation of conclusions leading to concrete initiatives and effective practical results in order to strengthen the Council's capacity to respond to the multiple growing security challenges facing the African continent.
The Algerian ambassador also stressed the need to strengthen dialogue, mediation, and conflict prevention across the continent. Let's take a listen again.
وفي المجمل تم العمل.
Overall, during the previous presidency, efforts focused first on addressing the situation of crises and conflict affecting the African continent with the aim of enabling the Council to play its pivotal role in seeking political and peaceful solutions to conflict and strengthening its capacity to respond effectively through an approach based on dialogue, mediation, and prevention.
وفق مقاربة قائمة على الحوار والوساطة والوقاية.
In a different story, Algeria's Interior Minister Said Sayoud arrived in Rome on Sunday, leading a high-level delegation for a working visit to Italy. According to Algeria's Interior Ministry, he is scheduled to hold talks with his Italian counterpart on a range of issues of mutual interest. Preliminary findings into the deadly bus crash in Algeria's Boumerdès province show that the driver, who was killed in the accident, had consumed multiple narcotic substances. Prosecutors said biological tests confirmed drug use, while 2 psychotropic pills were found in his clothing. Investigators also revealed that the bus was carrying more passengers than permitted and was traveling at 121 kilometers per hour on a downhill stretch where the speed limit was 60 kilometers per hour. Shifting focus to the Middle East now, just days after U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement of a breakthrough to implement the Gaza ceasefire agreement, the situation on the ground has taken a different turn as escalating Zionist attacks intensify the suffering of Palestinians. Marabahu reports now.
With the Zionist attacks on Gaza intensifying, announcements of a breakthrough to end the genocide have repeatedly fallen silent in the face of the devastating realities on the ground. On Sunday, at least 15 Palestinians were killed in Zionist airstrikes across Gaza City in the north, the central city of Deir al-Balah, and the southern area of Khan Yunis, marking the biggest daily death toll in weeks. The latest escalation followed US President Donald Trump's announcement on Thursday that the so-called Board of Peace had reached an agreement for the disarmament of Hamas and other armed groups in Gaza, calling it a key step toward a new phase of governance in the Palestinian enclave. Life in Gaza, however, tells a different story. As more displacement orders are issued by the occupation forces, Palestinians continue to cling to the hope of a ceasefire and the chance to reunite with their families.
We hope they reach an agreement and that a ceasefire is achieved. We don't want anything to stand in the way. We are very happy at the thought of returning to our homes. Even with the bare minimum of necessities, it would be far better than continuing to sleep out here in the streets.
Israeli elections are expected to take place this October, so I believe there could be delays in implementing this agreement. However, it is clear there is a strong American and Arab pressure from the mediators to bring this phase to an end and allow the National Committee to assume responsibility in Gaza. The key questions are, when will the committee actually enter Gaza, and will mobile homes also be allowed in?
According to Trump, the agreement would be implemented in phases. Once disarmament is completed, the Zionist forces would withdraw, while an international stabilization force and a new Palestinian police force would assume responsibility for Gaza's security. Hamas officials, for their part, said that implementation of the agreement is conditional upon the Zionist entities fulfilling its obligations, primarily the withdrawal of its forces from the Palestinian enclave. But behind the official statements, little has changed in Gaza. As Zionist attacks continue, Palestinians face worsening humanitarian conditions and mounting suffering.
Palestinian prisoners' organizations have condemned the ongoing abuses against women and children held in Zionist prisons. The Palestinian Prisoners Society says testimonies from lawyers point to torture, abuse, starvation, and the denial of medical care, while families and the International Committee of the Red Cross have been barred from visiting detainees. Another Prisoners' Affairs body says female inmates at Daman prison continue to face solitary confinement, ill treatment, and inadequate access to food and health care. Authorities in occupied Al-Quds says 3 Palestinians were killed and 15 others injured in the city during July amid continued Zionist occupation raids and the use of excessive force. Officials also reported a sharp escalation in activity at the Aqsa Mosque compound, saying nearly 9,850 Zionist settlers entered the site over the past month, with a record 4,248 reported in a single day on July 23rd. In northern Syria, soaring temperatures are pushing vulnerable families to the brink, turning life in displacement camps into an even greater fight for survival. Kermisfa has more in this story.
Years after fleeing war, thousands of displaced Syrians are now facing another challenge, the scorching summer heat. Among them is Bassam Abu Amr, who lives with his family in a suffocating makeshift tent in Idlib. Like thousands of other displaced families, he struggles to find water, electricity, and even the smallest relief from the relentless heat.
I cannot describe the situation in the camp. It's like a dramatic television series. This tent has only one room. We cook here, eat here, do everything here. The tent cannot block the scorching heat. If it's 40 degrees outside, it can reach 50 or even 55 degrees inside.
For Abdel Karim, the son of Bassam, staying cool has become a daily struggle. The 12-year-old was forced to go out to work odd jobs to help his family afford basic needs. With no real way to escape the heat, Abdel Karim has rigged up a simple fan using spare parts, hoping it would bring some relief to his family inside their sweltering tent.
It's still hot outside. I can't stand it anymore. I made a fan. I bought wires, a motor, and blades and put it together. The only way to cool down is to pour water on myself. Right now, my biggest dream is to have an air conditioner or refrigerator, but it's simply impossible. My dream is to have a house that can protect us from the scorching sun.
For families who have already lost their homes, surviving the summer has become another daily struggle. And in these camps across northern Syria, something as simple as a solid roof, clean water and a cool place for children to sleep remains a dream that feels painfully out of reach.
To another development in the Middle East still, U.S. President Donald Trump says he has put a planned military strike against Iran on hold, saying the decision depends on reaching a swift agreement with Tehran. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said the move followed requests from Iran and other regional countries. He also outlined a proposed deal that includes the immediate reopening of the Strait of Hormuz and an end to what he described as Iran's nuclear threat.
We have just been asked by Iran and other countries in the Middle East to suspend any further attacks because the framework of a deal has been agreed upon. The agreement would include the immediate and full reopening of the Strait of Hormuz and the elimination of Iranian nuclear threat. However, this decision depends on our ability to finalize the deal quickly.
For its part, Iran says it will use all available means to defend its rights and national security against what it describes as U.S. aggression. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry condemned the continued naval blockade and American attacks on Iranian targets, infrastructure, and citizens, calling them a clear violation or clear violations of the UN Charter. Tehran reiterated its determination to protect its interests and respond using all available tools. An Iranian lawmaker has warned that any attack on the country would trigger a response extending beyond the Gulf region. Ibrahim Rizai, a member of Parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee, said on X platform that Iran would target all U.S. military bases as well as the source of any attack, wherever it originates. To energy news now, OPEC Plus has approved another production increase of 188,000 barrels per day for September, marking its sixth consecutive monthly output hike. The increase applies to 7 key producers, including Algeria, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iraq, Kuwait, Kazakhstan, and Oman, as the alliance seeks to support market stability. Algeria's energy ministry said the country will raise its production by 6,000 barrels per day, bringing its average output to about 1,007 million barrels per day next month. Still with energy, European natural gas prices climbed to their highest level in July, posting a sharp increase from a year earlier. According to data from the London Futures Exchange, gas futures closed the week about $700 per 1,000 cubic meters, up 39% from the end of June. The average price for July was also 55% higher than during the same period last year. To another development in Africa, humanitarian organizations are warning of a looming famine in Sudan's Darfur and Kordofan regions, saying children are at risk of dying from acute malnutrition. Adam Regal, spokesperson for the General Coordination of Displaced Persons and Refugees, said worsening food shortages, soaring prices, and drought have pushed the regions to the brink of famine, with the humanitarian crisis deepening as displaced families face severe shortages of food and medicine. To the United States now, Washington State Governor Bob Ferguson has declared a state of emergency and imposed a statewide burn ban as fast-moving wildfires continue to spread. Officials say dry conditions and strong winds have fueled the blazes, which have burned more than 100,000 hectares. No deaths or injuries have been reported, but more than 60,000 people remain without power, and residents from around 200 homes have been evacuated.
I want to start by saying our state's facing a very serious situation with multiple fires. And our hearts go out to Washingtonians who are losing their homes and being evacuated. I was just telling Mayor Brown, I've been sent video of an individual literally driving through their neighborhood and showing the video of home after home after home that's in flames. So it's a heartbreaking situation.
Time to catch up on more or other news stories making headlines in the newsroom brief with Sofian Couture this time.
Russian officials said 2 people were killed and infrastructure was damaged in a large-scale Ukrainian drone attack on Saratov region early Sunday. Meanwhile, Ukrainian authorities said 1 person was killed in Russian strike on the outskirts of Kharkiv as cross-border attacks continued. Greece is battling multiple wildfires fronts a week after blazes destroyed more than 12,000 hectares of forests and farmland. The National Climate Observatory said over 6,500 hectares were burned in separate fires around the Corinth Gulf, including the popular coastal village of Porto Germano near Athens. At least 5 people were killed and 41 remain missing after a ferry carrying 271 passengers caught fire in Indonesia. The ferry was sailing from Surabaya in East Java to Makassar when the captain reported the fire, triggering a search and rescue operation. In Serbia, record low water levels on the Danube River, caused by severe drought, have forced 2 hydropower plants to sharply reduce electricity generation. Energy ministers said power output has been cut by 20 to 30%, urging residents to conserve electricity.
Well, that brings us to the end of our news program for tonight. Thank you for watching. See you next time.